Chapter 1. I snapped out of my daze with scenes from my past life flashing before my eyes. Fiona had told me she was pregnant just before Valentine's Day. The CEO had rushed back from the meeting. His gaze swept across me, making me feel deeply uncomfortable. From the room, I could faintly hear Fiona's coy voice, mixed with the CEO's indulgent whispers. What a perfect love story for the wealthy. After the CEO left, Fiona's friend Sana began to mock me in a snide tone. How shameless, wearing so little around the house. Who are you trying to seduce? Fiona held Sana's hand and pretended to scold her. Sana, she's my sister. How can you say such things? My sister went missing for over a decade and was only recently found. She's lucky to have been brought back. Well, I must be incredibly lucky. In my previous life, just a few days after Fiona said that, I was drugged. From that moment on, every time the CEO came to the house, he would sneak into my room late at night. Chapter 2. I had lived for 20 years as an orphan. Even though I was the true daughter of the family, no one ever showed me any respect. After being drugged, I had no choice but to swallow my pain, silently enduring it. Right before Fiona's due date, I found out I was 2 months pregnant. I held the medical report in my hands, staying in my room the entire day without eating or drinking, my hand unconsciously resting on my stomach. Inside me there was a new life. This sudden life was like a ray of light in my dark world, bringing warmth. I wanted to keep the baby, to raise it, to give it all the love I had. For the rest of my life, it would just be the two of us. When the CEO came to see me, I was debating whether to tell him about the pregnancy. But before I could say a word, I was knocked unconscious. When I regained consciousness, I was tied up with rope and stuffed into a burlap sack. I was being carried by someone, not knowing where I was being taken, until I was suddenly thrown to the ground with force. I let out a muffled groan, feeling light above me, and looked up. The CEO, who had once been tender and loving with me in bed, was now sitting in his car with a cold expression. Our eyes met, and his thin lips parted slightly. Fiona has been loyal to me. I can't keep betraying her. To be honest, being thrown off a mountain doesn't feel great. It's excruciatingly painful. I do not want to experience that again in this life. Chapter 3. Ever since Fiona got pregnant, the CEO visited every day, bringing the best supplements. But every time he came, his gaze would linger on me, his expression filled with satisfaction. He wasn't even afraid of Fiona noticing. Eventually, his actions became bolder and more blatant. After he left, Sana would show up like clockwork, glaring at me with malice. She would scrutinize me before launching into her usual string of insults. Fiona always pretended to stop her, but never truly intervened. Her face was calm, almost indifferent. Every time Sana insulted me, Fiona would pretend to step in. In my past life, I was foolish enough to believe that Fiona didn't know about my affair with the CEO. Each time she stopped Sana, I felt a wave of guilt. But how could she not know? Our rooms were right next to each other, with no intentional soundproofing. She might have even been listening through the walls one night. Beneath her composed expression lay a clear intent to kill. The thought sent a shiver down my spine. I couldn't be as naive as I was in my past life. The day after tomorrow, Fiona would drug me, leaving me unconscious in my room. But I was just an unloved daughter. In this dog-eat-dog world, one wrong move could lead to utter ruin. Just then, Fiona answered a phone call, and I overheard her conversation. "Your uncle is back?" Fiona exclaimed in surprise. I lifted my gaze, searching my memory for information about the CEO's uncle. I had heard that he was the real head of the group, and the CEO was merely a proxy. Jack Mars was the old master's son, born late in his life and doted on immensely. He wasn't even 30 yet. Looking at the information on my phone, a plan suddenly began to form in my mind. If I married Jack, no one in the Harper family would dare bully me. The Harper family may be wealthy, but they are no match for the Mars family. Chapter 4. Upon hearing that Jack had returned, the Mars family organized a lavish banquet, inviting notable figures from all corners. The next morning, Fiona woke up early, arranging for a stylist, a wardrobe consultant, and a makeup artist. When I came downstairs, the family of 3 was already dressed and poised for the occasion. As they saw me, their smiles faltered, clearly not expecting my presence. I had prepared myself, dressed elegantly, just waiting for the moment. They offered little commentary, except for my mother's cautionary reminder to avoid embarrassing them. In my previous life, when Jack returned, the Mars family hosted a similar gathering. The Harper family trio harbored disdain for me, and barely moments into the banquet, they ordered the driver to take me home. Now, the Harper family trio entered the banquet with their heads held high, as if I were invisible. But this worked to my advantage. In my past life, as I was driven away, I noticed Jack heading toward the garden instead of attending the festivities. As dusk settled, I decided to bypass the banquet hall and circle around to the garden. The March wind was biting, and I shivered in my light clothing. Jack had always been the prodigy of the family, remarkably talented. By 18, he had taken over the family business, establishing his own commercial empire in just 2 years. At 20, he chose to study abroad, causing his fame to wane. However, after 7 years upon his return, he still retained his prestigious reputation. Rumors circulated that Jack had never been in a relationship, with some speculating he preferred men. Whether he was attracted to men or women held no significance for me. Tomorrow Fiona would drug me and deliver me to Alex. I had no choice but to take a risk, even if it meant betting everything on one chance. As I stepped into the garden, I sensed someone following me. The bright moonlight cast our shadows on the ground. I turned around, feigning fear as I confronted the man. My breath hitched, and the carefully rehearsed words vanished as I was struck by his striking appearance. He had chiseled features that were handsome yet gentle, radiating a reserved, profound demeanor. His crisply pressed shirt had 2 buttons undone, his tie absent, revealing a glimpse of his collarbone. "Who are you?" I stammered, trying to mask my surprise. The man's face bore a slight flush, as if he had been drinking. He noticed me and began to approach slowly. "Don't come any closer," I exclaimed, acting like a frightened rabbit and stepping back. I wasn't sure if it was my imagination, but it seemed like he smiled. As I retreated, I stumbled over a stone, losing my balance and falling backward. "Ah!" I screamed, flailing my arms, but the anticipated pain never came. I opened my eyes to find him holding my hand, gently pulling me into his embrace. Looking up, I met his gaze, my throat dry. I had never attempted to seduce anyone before, but throughout my life, men had always personated me. Single men, married men. Even once, a man's wife confronted me, accusing me of being a homewrecker. I must have been quite beautiful. Even Alex had taken a liking to me. After a moment, I extricated myself from his embrace, eyeing him warily. "What do you want?" He chuckled softly, his tall frame leaning closer. "And who are you? What are you doing in someone else's garden?" "I just needed some fresh air." He grasped my chin, studying me intently. His cheeks flushed deeper, and his previously indifferent eyes began to spark with something different. A sensation both familiar and alien washed over me. He had been drugged. The man cursed under his breath, realizing something was amiss with his body. "Damn it!" He seized my hand, maneuvering us away from the party guests and leading me to a guest room on the top floor. I was thrown onto the bed, feigning terror as I regarded him. "What are you planning to do?" He shed his jacket and leaned over me slowly. I pretended to struggle, my already scant clothing loosening, revealing more than I intended. He pinned my hands down with one of his, looking down at me with intensity. His warm breath brushed my face, making my heart race. Sana was right. I was extremely beautiful, captivating enough that many men regarded me as a seductress. I didn't have to lift a finger. Just standing there drew the attention of a crowd of admirers. In my previous life, Alex and I had spent several months together, and this situation felt eerily familiar. It seemed the rumor about Jack being gay was unfounded. The man smelled faintly of alcohol. He gazed at me with a slightly intoxicated look but hesitated to go further. I began to squirm, my hands exploring his body, attempting to ignite his desire. His cold demeanor gradually yielded to a more primal urge, and we shared the night together. I barely slept that night. Jack seemed to be in excellent shape, his physique far surpassing Alex's. At dawn, I endured the discomfort in my body and hailed a taxi back to the Harper household. Everyone was still asleep, unaware that I hadn't returned home the previous night. I slipped into my room and took a shower. Looking at the marks on my body, I murmured softly, Is he a mad dog? So many bites. After changing clothes, I went downstairs for breakfast, only to find Alex had also spent the night at the Harper house. They were chatting about something. Fiona looked shyly delighted, and Alex held her close, whispering sweet nothings. They were the epitome of a loving couple. Since Fiona's pregnancy, Alex had rarely visited the Harper house. Standing at the top of the stairs, I caught Alex's gaze immediately. His intense stare made it impossible to ignore. I deliberately sat far from them, quietly eating my breakfast. Fiona got up, saying she needed to use the restroom. I continued eating leisurely and asked the maid, "Could you please pour me a glass of milk?" The maid nodded and fetched the milk, but Alex took it from her. I watched as he poured a glass for himself, then came over to fill mine, his hand brushing against mine in an unintentional yet charged manner. He smiled at me. I quickly withdrew my hand, noticing Fiona returning with a cold glare aimed at me. In an instant, I remembered that in my past life, this was precisely how Alex began to persona me. As Alex turned away, Fiona's expression shifted back to normal, as if nothing had transpired. Alex mentioned taking Fiona to see Jack, but Fiona insisted on bringing me along, claiming she had purchased a valuable gift for Jack and wanted me to carry it. I wanted to refuse, but my father interjected, "It's good for you to familiarize yourself with them, Sonny." I knew my refusal would be futile. Carrying the gift, I listened to Fiona's insinuation that it was priceless and that I couldn't afford to break it. Seeing my pale expression, her smile deepened. "You're really lucky, sister." I managed a slight smile, refraining from responding. At the door, I noticed Sana had arrived as well. She glared at me, then turned her charm on Fiona and Alex, linking arms with Fiona. "Why bring her along?" Fiona laughed. "It's only right for my sister to accompany us as family." I lowered my head, holding the gift. Seeing my appearance, Sana grew even more displeased. Carrying such a light thing and still acting pitiful. "Who's that for?" I lowered my head further, remaining silent. Seeing my demeanor, Sana's disdain only deepened. "You're making such a fuss over something so light. If someone didn't know better, they might think we're bullying you. What a pathetic sight you are." I kept my head down, not responding. Sana, seemingly not yet satisfied, deliberately paused and stepped forward to trip me. I clutched the gift tightly, the thought of it being priceless pushing me to stand firm and prevent myself from falling. Walking ahead, Fiona glanced back casually and smiled at me. "Sana's just a bit slow and didn't notice. Sunny's my sister. You should take good care of her." I steadied the gift and murmured, "I should have watched where I was going." Sana's smugness only grew as she quickly joined Fiona, and the three of them climbed into the car. I stood behind, unsure whether to follow them in. Finally, Alex stepped out, opening the door for me and ushering me inside. Upon arriving at the Smith residence, Alex led Fiona inside first. Sana walked beside me, grumbling, "I really don't understand why Fiona brought you along. It's embarrassing." As we entered the living room, I heard a voice say, "Still no news about the person I asked you to find yesterday?" I paused, trying to make myself as inconspicuous as possible. Just then, a man in a butler's uniform stepped out. His gaze lingered on me for a moment before he silently walked away. I kept my head down, sensing a piercing gaze on me as soon as I entered. Holding my breath, I placed the gift on the table. "Uncle, Fiona specifically bought this for you. Knowing you appreciate calligraphy and paintings, she got this exquisite piece at an auction." John glanced at the gift briefly, then his eyes shifted toward me through the crowd. I slowly stepped back behind Sana, but suddenly a deep voice cut through the air. "Where do you think you're going?" Startled, I looked up to meet John's gaze. His cold eyes were fixed on me, a slight smile playing on his lips. When I woke up this morning, he was still sound asleep. I hadn't revealed my name or pretended to know who he was. It had been a one-night encounter. He had been drugged last night, while I had remained fully aware. I didn't resist much, and when I woke, I fled quickly. Now, for the first time, I was truly observing John. My eyes widened in surprise, and I instinctively took 2 steps back, quickly lowering my head to avoid his gaze. The cold stare from above gradually softened, yet I felt a chill from Sana and Fiona's frowning looks. I forced a smile and stammered, "Good morning, Mr. Smith." Fiona shot me a glance and said, "Uncle, this is my sister, Sunny." John nodded and said, "Come and sit." Under the resentful gazes of Sanaa and Fiona, I reluctantly took a seat beside him. During lunch at the Smith house, John occasionally placed food on my plate. Each time I ate, I felt two pairs of venomous eyes fixed on me. Sanaa glared at me with jealousy, while Fiona's expression remained unchanged, though her eyes occasionally flickered with coldness. #6 #. After lunch, John remained silent as I quietly got into the car, dreading the return to the Harper household. Once we arrived, Alex dropped us off and then drove away. I trailed behind Fiona and Sanaa, careful to keep my distance. Sanaa, bubbling with anger, exchanged words with Fiona before storming over to me. In a swift motion, she slapped me hard across the face, seething, "You little bitch! You always look like a temptress luring everyone in." Stunned, I clutched my face, sinking to my knees, my gaze fixed on the ground. Why did Sanaa hit me? Was it possible that she has feelings for John? Defiantly, I looked up at her, but this only fueled her fury. She raised her hand again, ready to strike, but Fiona stepped in to stop her. I got to my feet, noticing my parents approaching slowly from behind, a wave of bitterness washing over me. So, she only halted because someone else was coming. My knee was scraped and stinging, and eventually, Fiona ordered a servant to bring me some ointment. That evening, as I stepped out of my room, the dining table was lavishly set, indicating that Alex was indeed coming over. I took a seat next to Fiona, trying to eat quietly, but Alex's intense gaze made the atmosphere feel stifling. His eyes were filled with a mixture of hunger and impatience, unsettling me. Fiona smiled sweetly, glancing at me from the corner of her eye, but I could sense the tension simmering beneath her cheerful facade. I felt as though this meal was stretching on for an eternity. My parents seemed oblivious to the tension, persistently serving Alex food and encouraging him to eat more. After what felt like an hour, everyone finally finished. My parents announced they wanted to take a walk, leaving just Fiona, Alex, and me in the expansive living room. They sank into the couch, with Fiona nestled comfortably in Alex's arms as he played with her hair, occasionally teasing her, completely disregarding my presence. "Fiona, having you by my side is my greatest blessing," Alex declared, his voice dripping with affection. Fiona snuggled closer, playfully responding, "Oh, stop it." Watching their display of affection felt incredibly insincere, igniting a surge of resentment within me. My biological parents had no love for me, and Fiona viewed me as nothing more than a thorn in her side, eager for my downfall. Alex sought to possess me, treating me like a mere toy to fulfill his desires, only to cast me aside later, blaming me for intruding on their relationship and using my suffering to fortify their love. Sanaa believed I was seducing her man and escalated her insults, even resorting to violence. I was simply an unloved daughter, stripped of any voice in the Harper household or even in the city, devoid of rights. My life and death meant as little to them as that of an ant. No one would bat an eye if I vanished. It was absurd. In this new life, I vowed to change my fate and turn the tables. I glanced at Alex and, upon meeting his gaze, quickly looked away, hurrying upstairs. The impatience and desire in Alex's eyes terrified me. Though Fiona's smile remained bright, I caught a glimpse of a crack in her cheerful facade. She looked up, warmth lacing her voice. "Alex, since I'm far along in my pregnancy, it wouldn't be appropriate for us to share a bed. The guest room next to mine is ready. You can stay there tonight." Alex took her hand, a soft smile gracing his lips. "Fiona, you're so thoughtful." Then she turned to me as I was about to ascend the stairs, calling, "Sister, I can't move around easily. Could you show Alex to the room next to mine?" I froze, my body tensing as I looked back downstairs, feeling Alex's intense gaze bore into me, as if he wanted to consume me whole. I nodded, and Alex followed closely as I led him to the guest room. Just as we stepped inside, he shut the door behind us, rushing forward to envelop me in his arms. I turned pale and struggled, panic rising in my chest. "Alex, what are you doing?" Ignoring my protests, he carried me straight to the bed, pinning my hands down while his eyes fixated on my chest. Breathing heavily, he said, "Sunny, stay with me. I promise no one will ever bully you again, and I won't mistreat you." Before I could respond, he leaned closer, his warm breath brushing against my face, pressing me down so I couldn't move. Despair washed over me. I fought with all my strength, but it was no match for his overpowering grip. Desperately, I twisted my body and pushed against him, tears streaming down my cheeks. "We can't do this. You're my brother-in-law." He tightened his hold on my wrists again. "If you don't tell anyone, I won't either. She'll never find out." Then he began to unbutton his shirt, attempting to tear my clothes off. Panic surged through me and I screamed, "I have a boyfriend. You know him. He's your uncle." #7#. The guest room was only separated from Fiona's room by a wall, and since Fiona had followed us upstairs, she could naturally hear everything. Fiona seemed to be testing Alex, or perhaps testing me. She had always been wary of me, and my loud shout had reached her ears completely. The closed door suddenly opened, and Fiona walked in from outside. Alex's hand paused, his face darkening. "What did you say?" Taking advantage of his hesitation, I hurriedly pulled away from the bed, straightening my disheveled clothes, my face flushed with fear. Alex frowned, his gaze icy, clearly shaken by my words. Fiona's face was calm, but I didn't miss the hint of malice in her eyes. In her eyes, I was nothing but a seductress trying to steal her husband. Even if she tried to smile, it looked ridiculous. She must have known Alex's intentions and had tacitly allowed it. Her emotions were a mix of displeasure and hatred. I had disrupted her plans. Compared to other women, I was easier for her to control. She only permitted me to be the exception in her marriage. She wanted to lash out at me like Sana did, even physically assault me. But she couldn't. She had to maintain her image as the gentle, refined lady. Fiona quickly composed herself and turned her gaze to me. "Sister, you must be joking. You and Uncle only met once. How could you be in a relationship?" Suddenly, her face turned grim, as if she had thought of something. At today's lunch, although John and I hadn't spoken a word to each other, he had continuously served me food. Alex's face also darkened as he recalled today's events. His cold, harsh eyes scrutinized me. To them, I was already a seductress. This shameless woman didn't fancy Alex but went straight for his uncle John. What was John's status compared to mine? To them, I was like a toad wanting to eat swan meat. But they couldn't deny that I was extremely beautiful. Alex thought I looked down on him and was instead infatuated with the more outstanding John, which only fueled his anger. In the Smith family, Alex was merely an acting CEO, relying on John's name to maintain his position. Now that John was back, Alex's title was just a figurehead with no real power. Alex had made many enemies during his tenure, but they all feared his identity and the man behind him, John. With John's return, all real power reverted to him, and Alex's days as acting CEO were numbered. In my previous life, after I was thrown down the mountain, Alex was stripped of his position and reduced to a manager, his financial status plummeting. This made both Alex and Fiona resent John even more, often cursing him at home. Alex frequently fantasized about seizing control of the Smith family and crushing John underfoot. It was even more absurd that he conspired with outsiders against the Smith Corporation, attempting to overthrow John. If John were defeated, the Smith family would be his. Then Alex could have anything he wanted. Now, hearing Fiona's words, Alex's face filled with rage. He raised his hand and slapped me hard. "You slut, no wonder you refused me. You were aiming for something better." I took the slap head on, my ear ringing, and spat out a mouthful of blood, collapsing to the ground. Covering my face, my heart was filled with defiance. Having lived a second life, I couldn't be the toy everyone used and discarded. At that moment, my parents, returning from their walk, heard the commotion and came to the door. My mother saw my swollen face and asked, "Sonny, what happened to your face?" Tears welled up uncontrollably. I wanted to cry out but didn't know what to say, so I remained silent. Fiona's face was pale, unable to offer an explanation. This farce ended with the excuse that I had accidentally hit the wall, and the situation was dismissed. #8#. When I woke up the next day, my left cheek was completely swollen. I wanted to go downstairs to get some ice, but I saw an unexpected visitor. John was here. A sense of excitement surged within me. As I walked down the stairs, everyone looked up at me. John noticed my swollen face, his eyes darkening. My mother smiled warmly. "Sunny, come over here." Feeling bewildered, I walked over to her and she took my hand. "Sunny, since when have you and John been dating? You should have told your father and me." Her words left me even more confused. What she said next completely stunned me. "John is here today to discuss your engagement." I was momentarily at a loss for words, but quickly regained my composure, suppressing the joy inside. Fiona and Alex stood nearby, their faces unreadable, showing no clear emotions. Fiona smiled, though it didn't reach her eyes. "Sister, you should have told the family you were dating." I forced a smile and replied, "Thanks to you, sister." At these words, Fiona's hand clenched tighter at her side. Upon hearing the news, Sana came to our house, barging into my room, launching into a tirade of personal attacks. Fortunately, I was in a good mood, letting her words go in one ear and out the other. My engagement to John was thus settled. He wanted me to work as his personal secretary at Smith Corporation and move in with him. I was eager to leave the Harper household, so I quickly packed my things and moved to John's villa. John was very busy with work. As his personal secretary, I was supposed to travel with him, but he didn't take me along, assigning me some simple tasks instead, giving me a few leisurely days. Later, I heard that after that night, Alex and Sana got involved with each other. Sana, being smart, was the complete opposite of me. Fiona didn't seem to mind their affair. As her pregnancy advanced, Alex bought another villa and moved Sana there, living shamelessly together. John returned from his business trip half a month later. My desk was in his office. After a few days of relaxation, I almost didn't react when he came back. I sat next to him, feeling uneasy. He was engrossed in work all morning. At noon, my stomach growled, causing my face to flush with embarrassment. John looked at me. "Are you hungry?" Blushing, I nodded shyly. "It's lunchtime." He called the kitchen, ordering my favorite dishes. Besides me, John had another male secretary. I was given the easiest tasks and had little to do after finishing them. John was very focused on his work and we hardly spoke. After work, we went home together. No one bullied me and no one dared to pick on me. Gradually, I used my free time to improve my cooking skills. I noticed John often didn't eat on time, so I started making different dishes for him every day. He appreciated it, always finishing everything I made. Today he had a business meeting, so I went home first to prepare a big meal. I carefully selected the ingredients and spent hours in the kitchen. Once everything was plated, I set the table and waited for John. I must have fallen asleep at the table, my head nodding when I was startled awake. Looking at the clock, I reheated the now cold dishes. It was already 1 a.m., and John still hadn't returned. Except for business trips, he rarely didn't come home. I was feeling dejected, thinking he might not come back tonight. Just then, I heard footsteps approaching the door. "You're back." My mood instantly brightened. John seemed surprised to see the meal I had prepared, his expression softening as he took off his coat. "Sorry, I forgot to message you." I shook my head. "It's okay. Are you hungry?" John picked up some food with his chopsticks, praising, "Delicious." Feeling satisfied, I poured him a glass of wine and one for myself. We clinked glasses, our eyes meeting. I had never drunk wine before, thinking it would be sweet like the ones I had during my part-time jobs, but this wine was bitter, almost making me spit it out. My face twisted in discomfort, but I didn't say anything. Soon I started to feel dizzy. My vision blurred, and John seemed to multiply before my eyes. "John, don't move." In the next moment, he seemed to multiply again. I stood up, trying to hold him down. "I told you not to move." John laughed softly, holding my hand gently. "I'm not moving." Perhaps emboldened by the wine, I cupped John's face, murmuring, "You're so handsome." Without thinking, I kissed his lips. His eyes narrowed slightly, and he held the back of my head, deepening the kiss. Later, he picked me up and carried me to the bedroom. That night, the room was filled with passion. #9#. The next day, my entire body felt like it had been taken apart, and I didn't even have the strength to get out of bed. John called in sick for me, and I spent nearly the entire day lying in bed. He was extremely busy, his life revolving around work. If it weren't for the announcement of our engagement, everyone would have thought his wife was work. No one understood why John and I were together, and even I didn't fully comprehend it. Time flew by, and before I knew it, John and I had been living together for 5 months. Recently, my main interest was following entertainment news online. The drama between Fiona and Alex was truly a spectacle. Their relationship, already as fragile as mud, had finally been exposed. Because of Sanaa, Fiona's image as the gentle lady was completely shattered. Alex no longer pretended to be devoted. During Fiona's pregnancy, he spent almost every day with Sanaa. When Sanaa became pregnant, she bragged about it to Fiona. Fiona, already jealous, couldn't tolerate it any longer. She had someone spike Sanaa's drink, causing her to lose the baby. The Sanaa family, which relied heavily on the Harper family, was subsequently kicked out by them. Fiona had Sanaa thrown out of the city, and before she left, she was assaulted by some thugs Fiona had hired. By the time Alex found out, it was too late to stop it. They had a huge argument, and Fiona nearly had a premature birth. Later, Alex was frequently spotted at nightclubs and bars, surrounded by rumors. Even when he was photographed entering a condo with a young model, he refused to return to Fiona. In my previous life, they had been a loving couple. In this life, Alex's true nature was revealed, almost like a historical tyrant favoring a concubine over his wife. #10 2 months later, I started feeling the familiar symptoms of pregnancy and immediately went to the hospital for a checkup. When the results came back, I touched my belly. A new life was growing inside me. John, for the first time, announced my pregnancy to everyone and moved the wedding date forward. The first to react was Alex. If I had the baby, the heir to the Smith family would be my child, and Alex would have no stake in the family fortune. I heard that Alex immediately went to see Fiona, and they had another huge fight. Alex even got physical, nearly causing Fiona to lose her baby. After a few days of rest, Fiona couldn't wait to confront me. We hadn't seen each other in a long time, and Fiona had lost a significant amount of weight, looking almost skeletal. No amount of makeup could hide her haggard appearance. She still smiled. "Sister, I didn't expect you to be doing so well here." I smiled back warmly. "Thanks to you, sister. If you hadn't brought me along, John and I wouldn't have fallen in love at first sight." Fiona's face twisted with discomfort before I even finished speaking. She probably regretted more than anything bringing me to meet John that day. Unable to keep up the pretense, she exchanged a few pleasantries, left the gifts she had brought, and then departed. I didn't miss the malice hidden in her eyes. After she left, I threw all the gifts she had brought into the trash. #11 As the months passed, my belly grew rounder and rounder, like a big inflated balloon. When Fiona reached full term in her pregnancy, Alex was still infatuated with a young model. The young model, who had once been a rebellious teenager, used her looks to become a print model and was favored by Alex, showing no fear of Fiona. She frequently sent Fiona intimate photos of herself with Alex, causing Fiona so much stress that she went into early labor. Fiona's labor was difficult, and her mother-in-law insisted on a natural delivery, refusing to sign for a C-section. She endured 10 hours of excruciating pain, nearly losing her life, before finally giving birth. It was a set of twins. However, due to her weakened condition and prolonged labor, only one baby, a daughter, survived. The son was born with a bluish tint, having suffocated in the womb. Alex, furious at the loss of his son, blamed Fiona for everything. Adding to her misery, Alex's mother was no less difficult to deal with, leading to Fiona's postpartum depression and eventual mental breakdown. Meanwhile, as I reached the 7th month of my pregnancy, John started cutting back on his work hours, making sure to come home on time to be with me. #12 I didn't expect Alex to visit today. When I opened the door and saw him, I instinctively shut it again and picked up my phone to text John. Alex, having been shut out, scowled and rang the doorbell again. Considering we're family, I thought he wouldn't harm me and slowly reopened the door to let him in. His gaze was like that of a snake fixated on my belly. He gritted his teeth and said, "Your belly is already this big." Instinctively, I shielded my belly, looking at him warily. John will be back soon. It was as if Alex hadn't hurt me. He slowly approached and I retreated in fear. He suddenly stopped and I paused as well, my voice trembling. "What do you want?" He sneered, taking 2 steps forward, eyes locked on my belly. Terrified, I tried to back away, but just then the door burst open. John kicked Alex from behind, sending him sprawling. His secretary quickly restrained Alex. "Take him to the police station," John ordered. John showed no mercy, charging Alex with assault. A few months later, I reached my due date and gave birth to a daughter. John named her Ava Smith. I was stunned by his choice of name, momentarily lost in thought. From that moment, John became a doting father, constantly sharing photos of Ava on social media. When Ava was 5, Fiona passed away, leaving her daughter behind. With Fiona gone, Alex was unable to care for himself, let alone his daughter. Feeling a pang of sympathy, I took her in as a playmate for Ava. I heard that Fiona's health had deteriorated after childbirth, and her frailty led Alex to despise her. Fiona's resentment spilled over onto her daughter. She frequently told her, "Why wasn't it you who died instead of my precious son?" She harbored deep hatred. She regretted not letting Alex cheat with someone else, fearing she couldn't handle the situation, so she targeted someone she could control. Her daughter grew up bearing the brunt of her anger, suffering both emotionally and physically. When I took her in, she was a frail little thing, smaller than Ava despite being a year older. Her eyes were filled with fear, and she hardly spoke to anyone. As for Alex, John took him to court with the best lawyers, securing a conviction and a 10-year prison sentence. With no one left to threaten or bully me, I became the happiest woman in the world. One holiday, emboldened by a bit of wine, I asked John, "Why did you name our daughter Ava?" John pulled me into his arms and softly replied, "Because I fell in love with you at first sight." I smiled, resting in his embrace. In truth, I fell in love with you at first sight too.